Welcome back to the Cherry Garage. Today I'm replacing the power steering pump on this 1995 BMW. It has an S50 swap in it. This is a pretty straightforward process. All we gotta do is basically disconnect the old power steering lines, unbolt 2 bolts, and swap the 2 modules, and then refill the fluid, of course. There is a pulley that gets removed and put on it. This is a used unit. You got to be sure to check before you purchase one that you have the right unit. There's 2 companies that make them, a LUK and a ZF option. Unfortunately, the power steering pump is only accessible from underneath unless you remove the alternator, but that's just more of a process. So go ahead and raise up the car and we'll go underneath and check it out. Let's go ahead and look underneath the engine. You can see here on the driver's side, this is the power steering pump. I was mistaken, there's actually 3 bolts, the bottom one being in this little bracket. Now, before you take off the serpentine belt, you're gonna wanna loosen these bolts on the pulley. It'll just make it easy for you. And then we can go ahead and loosen the serpentine belt. And then there'll be the 2 bolts I'll show you on the new pump. But then first, right before that, we're gonna disconnect these lines and let them drain out. You're gonna want a drain pan for that one. You're gonna have 2 bolts, one on the top of the unit, one on the side, and the one in the bracket down below. The bolts holding on the pulley are 13 millimeter. You want to grab yourself a crescent wrench and loosen these up. If it helps you, you can also put some pressure on the belt itself with your hand. There we go. Just break them loose. You'll take them off later. To save myself a little bit of time, I'm going to go ahead and start draining these power steering fluid lines and then go up and remove the serpentine belt. The top bolt, banjo bolt, is going to be a 19 millimeter. The side I think is a 22, but I don't have that, so I'm going to use my 7/8 inch. These are crush washers. If you don't have new ones, definitely keep on to the old ones. All right, now while those drain, we're gonna go up there and take off this belt. In order to take the serpentine belt off, you have to loosen the tensioner. It is pretty well hidden in here. I'm gonna try and point at it. Right here. And that's gonna take a T50 Torx bit. Now you're gonna have to use a pretty thin ratchet and probably put an extension on the handle, a cheater bar, to be able to loosen that belt. Depending on how thin your arms are, you might be able to do this without removing anything, but you might have to remove the fan and the fan shroud. That is a series of 10 millimeter bolts back here, and you might actually have to get a special tool for that. But chances are you might be able to get to this, and it looks like you could do it from underneath. So let's go ahead and try and do this real quick. I'll show you what I'm doing. All right, once you get it on there, you're gonna wanna put it on tighten. Righty-tighty to be able to loosen the actual. All right, this is how I'm doing it. My cheater bar. There it is. And that's just loose enough to slide off. You can go ahead and leave that in there for your ease. We'll come back to it. All right, now back under the car, we can take off this pulley. Plastic pulley, BMW. Now we can see 3 bolts pretty easy. There's one right there. There's one directly on top, almost directly on top, a little bit to the right over here, and the one on the bottom right there. They are all 13 millimeter. I'm gonna use my ratchet. And yes, the longer bolts are the ones on top. And this last one, you're gonna have to hold the pump so it doesn't fall. All right, there's our old pump out. You can see where it all mounts up in there. Pretty clean, not too bad. And before we put the new pump in, we are going to clean that one up, make sure there's no dirt or grime in the actual pump. You can pour a little bit fluid in there, turn it by hand and cycle it through just to clean it out. And then we're gonna get the process of putting it back in. All right, now that we got the unit nice and clean, we're gonna go ahead and install it. Reverse the process. Make sure you remove the pulley bolts first just to make it simple for yourself. Thank you to dvatp.com with their power steering pump. They supplied the torque values. The pump mount to the engine is 15 foot-pounds or 21 Newton meters, and the pulley mounting bolts are 16 foot-pounds and 22 Newton meters. So be careful not to over tighten the mounting bolts to the engine. Those are into an aluminum section and you can strip them out real easy. But we're gonna go through and double check all these torques and put the pulley mounting bolts on. Gotta align the bolts with the holes. Be sure to line up the belt grooves on this to make your life a lot easier. We're gonna go back up and slide the belt onto that alternator pulley. And right after that, we're gonna come down and hook up the banjo bolts to the lines. Get your ratchet on, pull the tension on the belt by hand, and start sliding the belt over. And as easy as that. It actually goes on easier than coming off. All right, let's double check our torques. That's good. On there. A little loose on this one. All right, and then we're gonna torque these down. Huh. All right. So be sure your fan shroud is actually mounted correctly, because you do have enough space in here. You'll have to hold onto the pulley itself to counter the spinning, but you can get it tightened down to 16 foot-pounds. So let's get those banjo bolts installed. These don't have a specific torque. What you're gonna do is tighten them down until they get flush, and then give them a good 3/4 of a turn, at least to where you can feel that the washers are starting to actually get pressed in. But don't over tighten them. And it's pretty much free of all ways that it could be touching something. Right there is solid. So now we got this all installed, and we're gonna go up and start filling the reservoir. It's important to get the right power steering fluid because this is actually a form of ATF fluid. All right, you're gonna look for a Dexron 3/Mercon ATF fluid, and we're gonna fill that into the power steering fluid reservoir up top and cycle it through. The reservoir is located right here underneath the actual throttle body, basically. You're gonna wanna take that cap off, which has a measurement stick on it. Yep, I think it'll be between the bottom and the first lip for when it's cold, and then the middle to the top lip when it's warm or running. Let's go ahead and fill it up. You're gonna wanna have a long funnel to be able to reach in there. What you're gonna wanna do is turn the wheel left and right a couple times without the engine running, and then check the fluid level, fill it back up, then start the engine and turn it left, check the fluid level, fill it, turn it all the way right, check the fluid level, fill it until it stabilizes at solid level, and you should be good. Barely touching, so I'm gonna fill a little bit more up and then I'll start it up. Much easier so far. Let's go check that level real quick. Do that process until you check the fluid with the wheel centered while the engine's running and it reads at the proper level on that dipstick. After all that, just clean up your mess. Make sure you clean off any of the fluid that you might have spilled on or around the reservoir, and you should be done. I hope this video helped you. If you have any questions, please feel free to put them down below in the comments. Be sure to like and subscribe this video, and follow us to watch more content on this E36. Thank you.